Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to my final Snowrunner tutorial. Sorry it took a little longer to get this one out. I've been a little busy, but here we are. So today's tutorial is going to be how to get custom wheels and tires into Snowrunner. Um, so first we have, obviously you're going to need a model of a tire, and you're going to need a model of a wheel. The wheels and tires are separate. If you happen to find a model of a wheel that has the rim and the tires all one piece, you're going to need to separate those, um, because the game handles wheels and tires as two separate objects, um, and it handles them quite differently. So if they're not set up correctly, they're going to look really funky in the game. So make sure that your tire is empty and it's just a tire, and that your rim is a separate piece. One thing that we need to know is that the size of the tires in the game are based on a scale. They're not a one for one sizing. So the size that's here in Blender is not the size that's going to show up in the game, because the size that shows up in the game on screen is dictated by the XML files. So what exactly does that mean? If we come into, uh, if we come into the XML for the main XML for the truck, and we come down to the compatible wheel section, these are the wheel files that are allowed to be on this truck. This is the offset of how far out they go in or out. And this is the important number here, scale. So what that's doing is that's taking this file and it's shrinking it down to 55% of this size. What is this size? Well, for consistency, most of the wheels or most of the tires in Snowrunner are roughly 2 centimeters in width. Now, if you remember back in the previous tutorial videos, when we were creating a truck, a scout truck is almost 2 centimeters wide. So that tells you just how large these tires actually are. They are the same width as a pickup truck. So that is why we use this scale to set how big the tires are in the game. Smaller the number, smaller the tire. Larger the number, the larger the tire. The menu in the garage is just basically the number is tied to whatever this scale is. So if you created this tire to be 6 centimeters wide in Blender and then exported it and told it it's a scale of 0.5, in the menu it's still going to say that it's a 35-inch tire, but on the screen in the game itself, that tire is going to look absolutely enormous. And the opposite can happen. If you had this tire in Blender all the way down to 1 centimeter, half this size, and then you export it and you tell the XML that it's scale 0.55, it'll still say that it's a 35-inch tire, but it'll look tiny. So consistency is key here, trying to get your tire to match what all the vanilla tires are, and that's roughly 2 centimeters in diameter. Mine's just a little over, but that's going to be fine. The Other keys to exporting tires is the location and position of the tire. If you notice, this is my world origin with my 3D cursor in the center, and it's pretty much centered on all axes. You got the Z axis here, X, Y, it's centered. How do I get that? Because typically when you import a file into Blender, it's not going to be perfectly centered. It's going to be off on one side or another. It's going to be somewhere. So what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll set my origin to center of mass surface, and that sets the origin of the tire to the very center of the tire. So we can actually kind of demonstrate this. Now it's off-centered. It's way out in space. So I'll set my origin to center of mass, which is showing where it is now. And then I'll come in and tell it to snap selection to cursor. If your cursor happens to not be at this crossroads of all the axes, you can first snap cursor to world origin, and that'll snap the cursor to this spot. Then snap selection to cursor. And it is perfectly centered, left, right, up, down, front to back. And then we'll come in, object, and apply all transforms. So now everything's back to where it should be. Everything's all zeros. Scale is at 1.0. Rotations are all at 0. That's how we want it facing. You need the tire facing, laying on its back. If it's facing in this direction, when you import it, which typically most tires will be, the tire is going to actually show up in the game laying on its back. The game wants the tire facing this way. So now we can come in, we can export this, and we need to go to the appropriate folder. iGame, Snowrunner, Media, Mods. And because I built up the tutorial truck into a full-fledged mod, it's no longer tutorial, it's YJ. So I created another test truck just for here. So we're going to go to meshes. We're going to go into the wheels folder, and I've already got some wheels here. We're just going to call this tutorial. We're going to go with the selected object and just the mesh. There's no armature connected to it. Export. So now we have a tire, but we also want a rim. So let me come in here. I have a whole collection of wheels and tires that I've done. Let's grab this heavy wheel. Now you're looking at it going, well, okay, the wheel is not facing the same direction as the tire. This is where things get a little tricky. When you have your wheel and tire, again, typically they're going to come in straight up and down. So what we need to do is, again, we have to separate these, and the tire has to be at this orientation. However, rims need to be in this orientation. Why? I don't know. Something with the programming. But rims need to be facing one way, tires need to be facing 90 degrees the opposite way. Again, I don't know why. So what I do is I'm trying to get all my tires roughly the same size with roughly the same interior diameter so all my rims match up. Being it's your first tire and rim, most likely you don't have a whole collection of tires that you want to try to put into the game, and you don't necessarily want to make them all compatible with each other. This has been a huge undertaking and probably a big mistake, because I've got 10 rims and 10 tires that kind of match, but they're still not quite right, and I've been spending months Slow every time I do a truck, I go back and I look at all the different tires and rims and I try to tweak them a little more to make them fit better. I still haven't gotten it perfect yet. So it's a huge undertaking to try to do. I don't suggest it to anyone. Um, these are two brand new tires and rims, and if I'm looking now, that was this one. When I look at it, tire, I notice the rim and the tire are not the same. See that rim is sticking out of that tire. Um, so let's make these kind of compatible for now. Let's grab the rim, grab our scale tool, and we'll scale it in a little ways. Try to make it look like it should fit. It's going to be kind of like that. And it looks like we've got the tire poking through the rim in the back. Well, possibly in the front too. Definitely in the front. So the easy way to fix that is we'll come into the rim, scale this way, 867, scale this, 867, and now our tire is no longer poking through the rim. If you're having trouble seeing that at all, what you can always do is there should be a shader option in here. I think it's this one. Yep. So you can see the tire's green. Anywhere you see green, that's the tire poking through. Again, on the back side, tire's poking through. So if we redo our scaling, pull that scale down, now the tire is no longer poking through. Okay, put that back. So now we've got everything kind of sized up. Again, those weren't initially supposed to go together. We're going to apply all transforms. We've got just the wheel selected. File, export, FBX. I should have named that tutorial tire, so I know it's the tire. Let's rename. Tutorial underscore wheel FBX. Okay. So now we've got a tire and our rim exported. Another step that you're going to need to do is the same that we did with all the truck and everything else, is you're going to need to UV edit. Select all, UV, smart UV. I've already done this. It did change a little bit because we changed the scaling. So smart UV it. You're going to need to apply a texture to it. So like the tire doesn't have a texture right now. Come in, new, rename your material to whatever you want it to be. I suggest going back through the tutorial and looking at where I was actually applying all the textures and whatnot to the truck. A little more detailed. Trying to keep this focused more on the actual tires and rims. So after you export it, we are going to need to do a little file work. So wrong folder. In here, this is the main folder for the truck. We need to go into meshes, the wheels folder, and remember every FBX needs an XML to go with it. So I'm just going to grab one of these, copy, paste, So tutorial underscore tire, tutorial underscore wheel. Now each of those has one of those. And in case you missed it, that is the location of where each texture file is going to be called out. So you've got the albedo map, the normals map, and the shading along with the material name. Again, I've covered that all in the texturing truck video, so go back and check that out. Now that we have those, we need to create a class XML for that tire. So in the wheels, I've got these that I already had for this truck. This is our new one, wheels tutorial. So this is everything that has to do with a wheel within the game, which is separate from the wheels that are in the main truck XML. Basically, this is telling the game how the tire performs, what the tire looks like, and that sort of thing. Whereas in the truck XML, it's telling the truck which tires to use. So I know that can be fairly confusing. That's the simple explanation is this is what the tire actually is in the game. In here, compatible wheels, that is just which wheels are able to be used with the truck. So you got damage capacity. Radius is the overall collision radius of the wheel. I always set it just slightly bigger than 1.0. So that way there, it actually comes in contact with the ground. If you set this smaller, the tire actually will look like it's floating. And if you set this bigger, the tire will start to smash down into the ground. So I like to keep mine just a little bit larger, and I set it to 1.05. I set my width 2.58, and same with width rear. Basically, I usually don't touch most of this stuff. Once I have it set for one, it pretty much works with all my things. So then the next section is truck tire. You can have multiple tires in one file. And what this is calling out is that file name. So wheels.tutorial is going to be another line here. I was keeping them all just one tire per file until recently, and I started to include more than one tire all in the same file just to try to make organization a little better and not have 500 different compatible wheel lines, because I'm up to 10 or 11 different tires now. So to have 11 different tires in 3 sizes, that's 33 lines of code. So to me, it made more sense to try to start to combine different tires and wheels into a single file. But again, you're just starting out, so we're going to go with just a single. So this mesh is literally the name of the mesh we exported as. So tutorial_tire. That was located in the meshes folder. So we can double check tutorial tire, FBX. So that's what this name is. This is the name of the tire as it appears in the, not necessarily in the game as you may know it. It's going to be as it appears in the UI menu. So let me try to find that truck. Could have been at the top. Okay. So, where I left off. Oh. This name is going to correspond to the name that shows up here in this menu. It's not the name that appears in the garage menu when you pull into the garage and you're trying to customize the truck. This name here is this name here. So we'll just call this tutorial for now. Again, I don't typically touch the mass and the scaling. The greater the mass, it kind of gives you more traction in certain areas, like overall. Makes the tire heavier. However, the game has a really strange way of handling that. The developers, the way that they design this, it's kind of backwards in a way, where the mass of the tire gets added into the mass of the truck, which then compresses the suspension further. The heavier your tires, the more your suspension gets compressed, because the mass of the tire is added into the mass of the truck. Obviously, the tire is not being held up by the spring, so if the tire was heavy, it shouldn't change how much the suspension compresses at all. So that's where the error comes in, is the fact that they're adding this into this, and then it crushes down the suspension further, meaning you need a stiffer suspension to overcome that. That's why it's a good idea to have all of your tires the same mass. So when the player is trying to use your truck, or you're trying to use your truck, and you've got it, you've tweaked the suspension, you've got it handling perfect with this default set of tires. As soon as you change the tires, if they have a different mass, your suspension's no longer any good, because those tires are going to weigh more or weigh less, and now your suspension is either too strong or too soft, and the truck's not going to handle the same. So it's best to try to get your mass to a point where you like it, and make all of your tires for that truck the same mass. I go one step further. I just keep copying files from truck to truck, and all my tires for all my trucks are the same mass. I don't have to mess around with it. Moving on, game data price is going to be the same. Unlock by exploration, you always want that false, and unlock at rank 1. So that way the tires are unlocked whenever the player starts up, no matter what rank they are and whatnot. UI description. This is where the name of the tire, the description of the tire, and the name of the tire are from in the garage. So this is going to be my tutorial tire for and because I copied my Super Swamper file, this is going to be tutorial tires. Wheel tracks, I don't change any of those. If you know how to create alphas and TGAs and whatnot, you're probably not watching this video. So for those of you that don't know what this stuff is, don't touch it. These are all default vanilla tracks and whatnot. I keep them the same. I don't touch them. I haven't explored trying to create my own. Wheel softness, again, that's another thing I don't really change. I haven't really tried to delve into it and understand it. So I don't really play around with these things at all. Wheel friction, however, I do. Your files may not have these in the same place. There may be a template up at the top, and the wheel friction may be included in there. You can always type these out in the truck tire section just underneath game data and whatnot. You could create this section and call out your own frictions. Now, just a brief explanation. Body friction is dirt. That is the amount of friction that you get on dirt surfaces. Not mud, not asphalt, not rocks, just the anywhere that's hard packed dirt. Body friction asphalt, that's pretty self-explanatory. That is the amount of friction or amount of traction that you're going to get on pavement within the game. Substance friction is snow and mud. So substance friction, that's your snow and mud value. These all work on a scale between 0 and 10.0. Lower the number, the less friction they have. The higher the number, the more friction they have. There is a problem when you start getting into the really high frictions. You start getting up into the 8s and 9s. Everything becomes super overpowered and it's just ridiculous. B, especially with body friction on hard dirt, sometimes you can start to get, if you have a really powerful truck that's really heavy and then it's carrying a heavy load on top of that, the body friction, if that's set too high, can start to cause some really weird stuttering and real traction issues when the truck starts to take off from a dead stop, especially on a hill. Sometimes I've even had some of my trucks start to go backwards. Put the truck in reverse and try to accelerate to back up, and suddenly the truck starts going forward. Put the truck in first gear and try to go forward, and suddenly the truck's going backwards. So with that, I try to keep my friction values relatively on the medium side. A lot of people say that my tires are a bit overpowered, but they're a little better than the vanilla tires for most of the trucks. So I try to keep them a little, like I said, a little on the lower side to the point where they don't feel absolutely absurd, but I'm not getting stuck nearly as much as I would with the default tires. UI name is the category in which the tires fall. So the different categories are highway, all-terrain, off-road, mud, and chained. Chained kind of becomes automatic when you add in the ice. There's a line for ignore ice. When you add that in, it kind of automatically puts them into the chained category, so you don't have to do anything with the UI name there. UI type mud tires name is obviously for mud tires. If you want to find the other categories, you can go into your Epic folder, wherever your game is being installed. Go into Snowrunner, ENUS, preload, packs, client, initial.pack. This is all the game files for all the vanilla trucks and everything else. So we'll go into media, we'll go into classes, and we'll go into wheels. These are all the different wheel categories that are there. And what I'm going to do is let's pick these off-road tires. If you look, there is UI tire all-terrain description, and the UI name. Okay, so we're going to come into media, templates, trucks. And this is all the different templates that the developers have created to call out to make their life a little easier for calling out different things within their XMLs. So here we have wheel frictions and the UI name. So here is off-road, mud tires, highway, chains, all-terrain, off-road, mud tire, highway. It keeps repeating, but this is where you can just come and grab whichever line you want. And I said that the chains automatically show up, and that's been my understanding all along. I'm not sure why these are in here, because as soon as you have this ignore ice equals true, I was pretty sure it put it into chains. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought it automatically put it into the chain category as soon as you said ignore ice equals true. But again, I could be mistaken on that. But this is also where you can come and grab that line to add if you want it to suddenly become a chain tire or a studded tire. It won't visually look like a chain tire or a studded tire. The actual 3D tire that's in the game won't look any different, but it'll ignore any ice patches and you'll suddenly have, you know, it literally does what it says. It ignores ice. So coming back here, that's the UI name. Again, that's the category in which they appear. Then close, truck tires from up top. Then the next section is truck rims, and these are all the compatible rims that will go with that tire. You can limit it to just one. You could have 20 if you wanted. You just have to make sure they all fit correctly. So what I'm going to do here is change this to tutorial underscore wheel. Did I call it wheel or rim? Let's go take a look. I don't remember. Meshes, wheels, tutorial wheel. Tutorial wheel. And then this name is the name that appears in this section here. So you see rim 2, rim 3, rim 4. This was rim 2. So we don't want it to be named the same, so we'll just call it rim 5. You could type in anything you want. UI description, UI name, these are the names that appear in the name and description that appears in the garage. Get rid of the background noise. So tutorial rim tutorial rim. Okay, and then we can save that. Come back into the truck. We'll make a new compatible wheels line. And don't forget, this is going to match the name of the classes. So wheels underscore tutorial. Save you. Come back to the truck. Reload the game. And tutorial. It decided to flip them on their side. Anyway. Okay, so we gotta go back into tire. I'm not sure why that happened. Heavy tire here. Zero. Project. Apply. All transforms. Export. FBX. Good part is we can just continuously change things until it looks correct. Media mods, test truck, meshes, wheels, tire, select mesh, apply transform, export. So back into here, vert, And I'm going to leave this stuff in just to show you that, hey, you know, things happen and sometimes it doesn't work right. So we'll work through how to get it to work right. They still didn't change, so we'll change that to 90. I don't know why, when all of my other tires have been just fine. Go in that direction. I think it just wants to try to make me look down on camera. There we go. We have tires. And again, the texturing and whatnot is the same as if you paint any other part of the truck. You VMAP it, label the texture name, and then go into Substance Painter or whatever program you're going to use to create your textures, apply them, make sure they're named correctly in the XML file for the mesh, and everything should be good. So I hope this helps everybody. Oh, one thing I didn't touch upon was if you wanted to just use vanilla tires on a truck. Let's say we wanted to put just some vanilla tires that normally come on a different truck onto this one. How can we do that? What I usually do is I go in through the initial, you're still in that initial .pack, and these are the files, the main truck file for every truck in the game. Come into a truck that you want to take tires from, scroll down until you find the compatible wheel line, wheels _ scout 1 _ scout 2, grab those, copy them, come in here, add them to it, save, reload. Garage, and suddenly we have Scout tires for the truck. Adjust the size however you like. Let's do another one just as an example. Let's go with a nice big truck. Dairy Longhorn. Scroll down, find compatible wheels. Copy the line. Back to the truck XML. Put it in. Save it. Reload it. You may have to change the offsets on some of these to kind of match your truck width. And now we have different tires. So that is it. Hope you guys learned something. And we will see you later at some point. Thanks for watching.